Now, in addition to inserting your symbols here, like the black and white symbol of a candle here, or phones, or whatever symbols available that we covered in the Inserting Symbols training video, you can also insert pictures in Clipart. For example, let me hit enter a couple of times, and let's insert a picture here. To do that, come up here, click on the Insert tab, go to the Illustrations group, click on the Picture button, and it opens up and it takes me to my Sample Pictures folder. But if I have another picture somewhere on my computer, I'll come over here in the navigation pane, click on the desktop, and then over here in the main window on my desktop I have my Exercises folder. Double click on that, and there's a picture. Double click on that, and it inserts the books. You get these handles or resizing handles around the image. All you have to do is hover over it until you can see arrows pointing in opposite directions. Then you can click and drag to resize it down or resize it back up. In any case, we'll learn how to modify your pictures and or Clipart in the Word Level 2 training videos. But for right now, we're going to keep it simple, learn how to insert our pictures and also Clipart. What's Clipart? Well, it includes combinations of pictures or illustrations. So let me click off to the side of it and hit enter a couple of times so we can insert some Clipart down below. Come back up here, click on the Insert tab, go to the Illustrations group, and then click on Clipart. It brings up the search pane to search for Clipart, which you can go ahead and search for. Come up here, type in what you want to search for. How about Independence Day? Now before I go ahead and click go, what are the results? Is it going to be all media file types? Click on the drop down arrow, and what that includes is illustrations, photographs, videos, and audio. So for Independence Day, you can actually search for some sounds of fireworks. Maybe there's some videos of it. In any case, to keep it simple, let's uncheck videos and audio. I guess we could look at photographs, but I'm going to uncheck that and just do illustrations. Click off, and then before I click go, you get the option to include the media types online at office.com, which contains a lot more than what's installed on your computer, so go ahead and check it. Of course, make sure you have internet connection, then go ahead and click go. Then look down below for the results. Hey, we got a big firecracker. What better way to show your independence than by blowing up a portion of your country? In any case, go ahead and scroll through it, find the one you like the firecracker, click on it, boom, it plops it right in there. Once it does that, you can come over here and of course and click and drag to resize the image by clicking on the resizing handle, or you can do it more horizontally, click and drag the middle resizing handle, whatever works for you. Ugh, that looks awful, I'll hit undo. And of course you can move these around, just go ahead and click and drag wherever there's a paragraph marker. Drag it above. If there's no paragraph marker, well, to see your paragraph markers, come up here, click on the Home tab, go to the Paragraph group, click on your Show Hide Codes. By now, I think I really pounded it into your head that the Show Hide Codes are really important because it can tell you where you can land things. I don't have any additional paragraph markers down below, so I cannot click and drag the image or the Clipart down below here, but just to that last paragraph marker there. So I could hit enter several times, then I could go ahead and click and drag the image or the Clipart accordingly. You see my flashing cursor, and I hit the down arrow a couple of times, so it's flashing in front of the image. You can hit the space bar to, of course, move it over, or use your tab stops, or hit the tab key to move it over, about so far on that line there. And of course, if we want to do more searches, just come over here, type in some new text, click go. When you're done with it, go ahead and close out. And then let's scroll back up and turn off the codes. We're back in my Cure All Essential Oils document, and as you recall, it's got a total of 3 pages, and you can see that I'm on page 1 of 3. Let me come over here and click and drag the scroll bar all the way down to page 3. At the bottom, we finish off our essential oils that we resell, the bulleted points here, and what I want to do is I want to be able to separate the bullet points from the bottom paragraph and have the bottom paragraph on the next page. So instead of clicking in front of it and hitting enter, enter, enter to push that till it gets onto the top of the next page, let me go ahead and hit undo a couple of times. Instead, I can go ahead and use what's called a page break. Wherever my cursor is flashing, when I insert the page break, it'll go ahead and take everything to the right of that cursor and below it and push it on to the next page. That way I don't have to hit enter several times and have all these extra paragraph codes in my document than necessary. So before I go ahead and insert a page break before this paragraph here, but after the bullet point, you want to turn on your Show Hide Codes by coming up here on the Home tab to the Paragraph group, click on Show Hide Codes, because you want to verify where you're going to go ahead and put a page break. If I put it right here, notice how the oils is indented. Where we tabbed it over, there's the tab code. So I don't want to break it there, because if I want to go ahead and have that be included to come with this paragraph, then go ahead and break before the tab here. So I'm going to go ahead and click in front of it so the cursor is flashing in front. Then I can go ahead and do a page break or insert a page break by coming up here, clicking on the Page Layout tab, going to the Page Setup group, and there it is, Breaks. Click on the drop-down arrow. You have two different types of breaks. You have the regular page break section, then you have the section breaks. And we'll discuss the difference between the two, but for right now, let's keep it simple. Let's do a simple page break. Click on it, and boom. It takes everything that was to the right of that flashing cursor and bumps it to the next page. You can see it's at the top of the next page. So when I scroll back up, it's not there, but with our show hide code still being displayed, it shows that this is a page break right here. So if I come back up here, click on the Home tab, go to the Paragraph group, and click off my codes, then obviously you can't see it. That's not going to print. Even if you turn it back on, it's still not going to print, because as you recall, when you click on the File tab and you go to Print, what you see in the Print Preview window is what's going to print off. Even though my codes are being displayed, it's not showing here, so they're not going to print. Let me click on the File tab so I can go back to where I last left off, the Home tab here. And there's my Show Hide Codes. Now, if I want to go ahead and let me click and drag to scroll this back up, get rid of the space between the bullet points, the essential oils, and the paragraph that's on the next page, then I need to delete the code here, page break. Go ahead and click in front of it, hit the delete key, and boom, it pulls it back in. Well, plus we have an extra paragraph code here, delete that, and it pulls it right up tight below the last bullet point. Another way that you can insert a page break without having to come up here, clicking on the Page Layout tab and clicking on the Page Breaks drop-down arrow, there's the shortcut key is Control-Enter. It does the same thing as the page break and pushes everything that's to the right of the cursor onto the next page. And then finally, you see these breaks in between the pages, and you see when I hover over in between that break, how it says double click to hide the white space. Well, the reason why that could be very helpful is because when you're scrolling in between pages here, and you got this extra space here, and the top margin, the bottom margin of the page above it, if you go ahead and you double click on that, it collapses it. So it looks like there's no gap when you're trying to read the document and going from the bottom of one page to the top of the next. That way I don't have to scroll. So if I go ahead and hover over that line and I double click it, it goes back to the default, showing you the 1-inch margin down below and any extra space there. So when I click and drag, I have to scroll down to be able to read the top of the next page. But it's so much easier if they're right next to each other, right? Double click to close that white space, and it's great for reading purposes. But when it comes to editing, well, you want to go ahead and double click to open it up so you can see how much space is actually going to be between the bottom of one page and the top of the next. I mean, when you print off your documents here, you got quite a bit of extra space here. And the reason why is because the next bulleted point takes up a lot of lines, so it can't cram it all at the bottom of this page, so it just adds it to the next page here, okay? I want to show you a few ways how you can modify the layout of your document. First of all is going to be the orientation. There's only two orientations within Word. There's the portrait and the landscape. The portrait is, well, the default view that you see here, the page, where it's an 8.5 by 11. In fact, you can come up here and take a look at it on the horizontal ruler. You can see that we got the workable area in the lighter shade, 6.5 inches, and then add an inch to the right margin and the left margin. There's 8.5, and then of course 11 inches vertically. If you don't see the rulers, then come up here and click on that View Ruler button, which is just above the vertical scroll bar. When I click on it, it'll hide it, but click on it again and it brings it back up. So that's the portrait view. If you want more space width-wise, you can go ahead and change it to the landscape view. In fact, let me come up here, click on the File tab, go down to the Print window. So you can see over here in the Print Preview, there's your portrait. It's 8.5 by 11. And if I want to go ahead and flip that on its side, so I have more width than I do height, then come down here, click on Portrait, and change it to Landscape. See, it just tilts it on its side, so now I have more room over here to the right, because instead of being an 8.5 by 11, it's now 11 by 8.5 vertically. Now, this isn't the only place that you can change the orientation. There's quite a few other places, like coming up here, clicking on the Page Layout tab, going to the Page Setup group, there's orientation. Now, before I go ahead and change that, again, look at your ruler. Before we had 6.5 inches of workable area. Now that's expanded here to 9 inches with an inch on each side here in the margins. So there's your 11 inches total. So let me come up here, click on Orientation, and go down and go back to Portrait. Or you can come back here to the Page Setup group, click on its Expandable Dialog Box button. On the Margins tab, it's there as well, Landscape, Portrait. Let me click Cancel. In fact, the shortcut to get to that expandable window, if you have your rulers up, go ahead and double click really fast in the shaded area, in the margin area. When you double click, it brings up the Page Setup window. So there's a shortcut. In fact, while we're here, let's go on to the paper size. If you need to change the paper size that you're going to be printing on, let's go to the Paper tab. You see the default's the letter. You can go ahead and customize that and say instead of 8.5 by 11, it's now going to be 9 by 11. And you can see it's custom size, or if you know the name of the paper type that you'll be using, let's go ahead and scroll up. Let's see, they have A3, A4. I don't know what A4 is. Okay, it's 8.27 width, 11.69 height. Ooh, that's fun. Or click on the drop-down arrow, and let's do envelope 10. Now, if it doesn't look right down here in the preview window, because I know a number 10 envelope shouldn't be vertically, it should be horizontal here, then come over here to the Margins tab, and there we go, change it to Landscape, and doesn't that look more like a number 10 envelope? Click Okie dokie, and there we go. So that's how you can change your paper size. How about working with the margins? Because as you recall, we've got 1 inch on the left margin, right margin, and 1 inch on the top margin and the bottom margin. So anything in between those margins is a workable area that we can go ahead and type in some text. And you can see the top line here starts right below the 1 inch margin. So if I want to go ahead and shrink that up and say, okay, instead of 1 inch from the top, let's do about 1/4 inch so the text can start a little bit earlier up. Then to bring up the margins, again, just go ahead and double click in the shaded area on that ruler there. Brings up the page setup window. There's the Margins tab. Go ahead and click on it if it's not defaulted to the tab. And then let's change the top from 1 inch to type in 0.25, hit the tab key, and you can see down here in the preview window, the line of text there, it's really close to the top. So go ahead and click OK, and boom, wow, it pulls it right up there. You've got just 1/4 inch margin here that you won't be able to add any text to. It's going to be this far from the top of your document, or in this case, the number 10 envelope. And then finally, the last feature that I want to show you is the vertical center feature. So for example, if I want all the text on the page to be centered here vertically without guessing by coming up here and hitting enter, 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 enter and saying, okay, I think that's about centered. Let's go ahead and hit undo. And then to go ahead and center it vertically, let's go ahead and double click in the shaded part of the ruler to bring up the page setup window. Go to the layout tab, and there it is, the page section. Vertical alignment. By default, when you start typing in your text, it's going to be at the top. Well, below the top margin. Click on the drop-down arrow. Let's do center. Click Okie dokie, and it centers it. Cool. Let's go ahead and change this back to the regular letter size by double-clicking here, going to the Paper tab. Click on the drop-down arrow, scroll back up, select letter, and if I click OK, look at the preview. It looks like it's more in landscape mode. Well, it should be because that's what the envelope is. Go to the Margins tab. Change it back to portrait, and then go ahead and click OK. Now don't forget we have the center vertically feature turned on here, so let me scroll down to the middle, and there you go, it's centered in the middle of the page. And that margin to the left-hand side is really tight, so again, just go ahead and double click in that shaded area, and let's go back to the default of 1 inch. Click OK, and that looks so much nicer. To put a border around your pages here or some color to your page, just come up here, click on the Page Layout tab, go to the Page Background group. There's Page Borders, click on it, and this looks familiar, or it should if you watched the earlier training videos on borders and shading, because we were working on the Borders tab and the Shadings tab when it came to applying a border around our paragraphs and shading within that border. As you recall, there it is, paragraph that we're applying it to, or on the Shading tab to the paragraph, but this one is applying to the whole document around each page. So how do we go ahead and set up a border around each page? You can either come over here and click on the box, and it adds a line around, well, all the sides of each page. In fact, let's try shadow. That way we got a line around all the sides of the page, but with a little bit of shadow there. So there's the border. If you want to make some changes, add some color to your borders, click on the drop-down arrow and say you want red. Changes it to red. But if you want one part of the border to be a different color, go ahead and click on it to remove it. Then click on the drop-down arrow, choose another color like, I don't know, some sort of blue here. And then click on the left-hand side to add a different color to that side of the page, or to that border on the left-hand side of the page. Of course, once I do that, it takes it out of shadow, and now it's a custom thing that I'm doing here. So I'm going to go back to shadow here, click on that. Then the color that I have selected is going to be the default color with the shadow added to it. And let's go ahead and click OK and see what it looks like. Oh, that's fun. There's the shadow there on the right-hand side. Scroll all the way down, the border for the first page, second page, like I said, it goes throughout the whole document. Let me scroll back up. To change it or remove it, again, come back up here to the Page Background group, click on Page Borders, and then go ahead and select None, or If you want to get artsy-fartsy, there we go, there's some art. Click on the drop-down arrow and say you want, I really don't like these, but you may find something that looks good. Let's try apples. Anyways, let me go ahead and click on the bottom to remove the apples from the bottom of every page and click okie dokie. And, well, I suppose if it's about apple pie, that would be cool. Let's go back up here, click on page borders, select none, click OK. We're back to where we started. Next, if you want to add some page color, in other words, instead of the typical white background, let's come up here, click on the page color drop-down arrow, choose a color, something, well, you can see as I hover over it, that's what it's going to look like there on the page. Click on it to make the selection, and then, of course, to get it back to white, click on the drop-down arrow and select white background or say no color. It's the same. A watermark is an image or text that you can insert into the middle of each page that's faded or washed out. That way it doesn't interfere when somebody's reading the document and they see that watermark or the text or the image behind it, that they can't contrast between the text and what's behind it, but it's more subtle. Again, it's washed out or faded. And the purpose of that, for example, is that, let's say this is a top secret document, I can go ahead and insert the text top secret as a watermark onto every page in the middle of it. That way when somebody reads it and they go to any one of the pages, it's all top secret. As opposed to having the text up here on page 1, top secret, and they think, well, I guess it's just top secret for page 1 and not for page 2 or page 3. In other words, they can't miss it. Or better yet, how about an image? We've got our Cure All Essential Oils document. How about an actual image of the product that we're selling? For example, let me go ahead and minimize this down to the taskbar. Go to my exercises folder, double click, and there's a bottle of it right here, an image of it. Double click on that, and you can see it's our lemon essential oil. Let's go ahead and close out of that, and that's what we're going to insert as a watermark into our document here. So let me come back down here and click on that button to restore the document here. Then come up here, click on the Page Layout tab, go to the Page Background group, and there it is, Watermark. Click on the drop-down arrow. You get some default templates like Confidential. Go ahead and click on one if you want to use that, and then scroll down to the middle of each page and you'll see it subtly faded in the background in big letters, Confidential. Go down to page 2. Confidential, you can't miss it, right? Let me hit the Control Home keys so I can go back to page 1. Then to remove it, of course, click on the watermark drop-down arrow and go down to remove. Pretty simple, right? But if you want to do some customization like your own text, top secret, or an image like inserting the 15 milliliter image of the lemon essential oil, then come back up here, click on the watermark drop-down arrow again, go down to custom watermark. So if I want to do text, go ahead and select that, and it's got some default text like ASAP. You can click on the drop-down arrow and choose something else. There's top secret, but if you want to customize that, you can go ahead and delete it and say, this is a spiffy document. You can also choose the font type, the size, which is automatic, or choose some other size. You can choose the color. If you want the layout diagonal or horizontal, semi-transparent, or gosh, go ahead and uncheck that so it's not transparent at all with whatever color that you select. Let me go ahead and recheck that. Click okie dokie and scroll down, and it's a spiffy document. You should have known that by now. Click on the watermark arrow again, go back to custom, and instead of text, let's do the picture. Then go ahead and click on select picture. Then browse through your computer to find your picture. Mine is already pointed to the exercises folder on my desktop, so you can see in the main window it's right there. Double click on lemon, and if the image isn't washed out, because as you recall when I showed you the lemon essential oil, it wasn't washed out or faded, by default it'll wash it out for you. You don't have to, you can uncheck that or check it back again. As far as to scale goes, you can do it automatically, the default. And the image was kind of small, but if you want to make it really large to fit up a larger portion of the page, then go ahead and choose, 200, 500%. I'm just going to do auto. Leave the default to wash out and see what it looks like. I can click apply here and then click and drag to move this around and go, ooh, that's really quite the large bottle, isn't it? I didn't want it that big for each page, so I can still have this, left open and make some changes here and just test it back and forth. How about 150%? To its original size. Click apply. A little bit smaller. I could even go 100% and click apply. Okay, so at least it's not stretched and blurry. Or if I uncheck washout, click apply. You see how that pops open? Well, you can still read the text, but it's a little bit more distracting not having it faded. Okay, so in any case, I'll do washout, click apply, click close, and you can see it's on every page. 1, 2, 3, and it could be a subliminal message. Buy our essential oils. Ooh. And then, of course, we can watermark to remove. Now, of course, throughout your document, each page has a top and a bottom margin. And you can see over here my vertical ruler at the top of this page to about right there, it's 1 inch. You can see how it goes from here, starts it and comes up to 1. So the top margin is 1 inch. These margins, top and bottom, are also known as headers and footers. You know, the heading of each page, your header section, and then at the footing of each page, your footer section. Now, if you can't see the space up above, how much space you have in your header section there to work with, then you want to do probably a couple of things. One is to turn on your ruler. You can do that by coming over here up at the top of the vertical scroll bar and click on the View Ruler button. When you click on that, it should show the rulers. But if you still don't see a whole lot of space there, as you recall in an earlier training video, when you hover over the top of the page and you see where it says double click to hide the white space, when you double click, I have no headings anymore. Well, we want to bring that back because we want to be able to start working within them. So come up here at the top and then double click to get us back or to reveal the header section of each page and also the footer as well. Now, the feature of the header and footer sections on each page is that anything that you put within either the header or the footer will be duplicated or repeat on every single page throughout your document. Why would you want to do that? Well, think of it this way. When you open up a book and you look up at the top, don't usually have the name of the author or the chapter that you're in repeated on every page. Can you imagine doing that? Coming up at the top of the first page without the header or footer sections and typing in my name, Kurt Kershaw, then going to page 2, typing it in again, Kurt Kershaw, page 3, 4, 5, 6 for 1,000 pages. That would just be too annoying. So thank goodness we have our repeating header and footer sections that we can just type it in once, either in the header or the footer section, and it gets duplicated and updates on all the pages throughout the entire document. Now, there's two ways to access your header and footer sections because by default, when you come up here and you try to click in it, no, it doesn't allow you to move your cursor or plop it in up above in that top margin, the header section. So one way is to come up here, click on the Insert tab, go to the Header and Footers group, click on the Header drop-down arrow, and you've got a bunch of templates here where it says, okay, we'll put you in the header section, but we'll have a little box here that says Type Text where you can type text in the left-hand corner, or you can have 3 columns where you can type text here, type text there, or better yet, bypass all the templates and say, just let me go into the header section and do what I want up there by clicking on Edit Header. Plots my cursor up there, and notice the main body of the text turns to a lighter shade of gray. It's not bold anymore because you can't edit the header and the body of the text at the same time. It's either one or the other. So my cursor's flashing in there, so to add any text, like I'm the author, and remember, what I do in one header, whether it's on page 1, 2, 20, 1,000, it'll update all the header sections throughout the entire document. So after I type it in there, let me prove it to you. Let me click and drag the scroll bar down to the top of page 2. There's my name again. Page 3 automatically updates. So if I come down here to page 3 and I type in the letter S, make a mistake, but go down to page 4, that mistake is carried on the rest of the header sections throughout the entire document. Let me go ahead and get rid of that on page 4. And then when I'm done with editing in the header section, I can either go down to the footer, or if I'm done altogether, I can just come up here on the Related Contextual Design tab for the header and footer tools and come over here to the Close group and click on Close Header and Footer. Close. Pulls me out. When I scroll up to the top, you can see now the text in the header section is faded, meaning that you can't edit that. You can only edit the main body of your text here. And of course, it also lets us know that that's in the header section. Now, as I mentioned, you can get into the header section or footer section one of two ways. The one way I already showed you, which was, insert to go to the header and footer group. The other way is to just simply double click in the header section, double click and boom, plops you right in there with the cursor flashing, then just go ahead and make your changes. Brings up again the Related Contextual Design tab for the header and footer sections. If I go to the header section, I want to get down to the footer section, you can either scroll down to the bottom of page, well, whatever page you're on, it doesn't matter because when you make any changes in the footer section, updates all the footer sections throughout the entire document. You can also come up here, Design tab to the navigation group, click on Go to the footer for that page, plops me down there, and then you can go back up to the header. You go back down to the footer. And it doesn't say go to the footer of page 2, 3, 5, 10. Again, any footer on any page that you make changes to will update all the rest of the footers on all the other pages. So how about if we go ahead and we insert some page numbers here. So let's come back up here, Design tab to the header and footer group, click on Page Number drop-down arrow. Do we want it in the top of the page, the bottom? Let's do the standard bottom of the page. You can see all the templates and where it puts it. Do you want it on the left-hand side of the bottom page, in the footer section, the middle, the right? Let me scroll down, see if I can find one. I like this one. the page X of Y. And the reason why I like that is because if I have a 10-page document and I hand this out and somebody says, hey, I just got one page, how many pages are in it? Well, it would say it right here. You're on page 2 of 10, instead of just saying page 2, and they go, I wonder if there's only 2 pages. Now they know that they're missing an additional 9 pages. So I'll go ahead and let's plop that over to the right-hand side, and boom, there you go. Now, if you don't like the format of the inserted code here, just go ahead and click and drag to select it, and you can see where it shades the 1 and the 4. That's the code that says, okay, if I scroll to another page, let me go down to page 2, to update that code to say that, hey, you're on page 2, and still keep this as a code for how many pages are within the document, a total of 4. So if I add another page, then it'll update all the others, this code, to a total of 5 pages. So it would be 2 of 5. So I can go ahead and click here and drag and highlight it and go over up and right so I can bring up my mini formatting toolbar, make it bold, change the font type to Comic Sans is kind of kooky, select that. Maybe make it size 10, hit the tab key, and let's do bold. Whatever you want to do. Let me go ahead and click off. That looks all right. So you can do the same formatting that you could within the main body of your document, also within your header and footer sections. Let's see, what else do we have? Up here on the Design tab in the Insert group, you can insert the date and time. Click on that. Choose a format. I'm going to choose this one. You can also have it update automatically, so when I check that box anytime I open up the document, like let's say tomorrow, it'll update this date to December 30th. Then the next day, the 31st, it's dynamic. It'll never stay the same. So if you want it to be static and not update every time you open up the document, then just go ahead and not check that, click Okie dokie, and it adds it. It doesn't look good right next to the page numbers, does it? So let's come up here on the Home tab, go to the Paragraph group, turn on our Show Hide Codes, see what's going on. And it looks like, well, before I even go any further in that in the Paragraph group, it's right aligned. So I want to go ahead and choose Left Align, pushes everything over to the left, but when I hit the Tab key, it'll take and it'll push over the text that the cursor was flashing in front of to the first tab stop, which is a center align tab. So if I hit Tab again, it should go to the next tab stop, the right align tab, and keep everything right aligned, so keeping the text over to the left-hand side of it. So you can see a total of 2 tabs to get these guys broken up so they're not right next to each other. Let's come back up here, click on the Design tab. You can also insert pictures like a logo, clip art, and then over here in the Options group, you've got a different first page. What that means is typically your first page is your title page, and you don't have a header or a footer section. So let me scroll up to the top to show you. There's my first page. So if I go ahead and check that, what it does is it gets rid of everything within the header and footer section of page 1. Of course, it dumped me down to the bottom of page 2, but let's scroll back up to verify that. You can see nothing down here in the bottom of page 1, or up here in the header section at the top of page 1 as well. And then below the different first page, you have the different odd and even pages that when you check that, it's going to divide up your document into odd and even pages for the headers and footer sections. So for example, pages 1, 3, 5, the odd pages, whatever you type into a header or footer section on one of those odd pages will automatically duplicate and update all the remainder of the odd pages, header and footer sections. But it won't touch the even pages, those header and footer sections found there, and vice versa. So let's go ahead and try it out, check it, and then when you do that, it's going to clear out one of the even or odd pages, header or footers. So you want to scroll down to check to make sure, and let's go to the first even page here. At the bottom we've got the date and the page numbers. How about the odd page number 3, the footer there? It also has the date and the page number, so it didn't clear it out. Mine's a little bit different, but if it did, and I'm like, hey, wait a second, it cleared out all the odd page footers, but I wanted the even page footers to be cleared out. So you could go to the even page footers, copy that, and paste it in an odd page footer, so it updates all the odd page footers and, make the changes there. In any case, let me scroll up to the even page footer, and let's clear out the date. So on all the even pages, 2, 4, 6, 8, it doesn't have the date. So when I do that, I scroll down to an odd page, didn't touch it, scroll down to the next even page 4, and it's not there. So it updated all the even pages. Cool. In the navigation group, up until this point, the next and previous buttons have been useless. Well, that is until we check the different odd and even pages. Let me show you. Let me scroll up. And let's say we're working in an odd page footer and I want to go to an even page footer. Instead of scrolling up and down to click within one, just go ahead and toggle by coming up here and clicking on Next or Previous, and boom, there you go. It takes you to an even page footer. And it doesn't matter what even page as long as it's an even page footer, because what you do in one will automatically duplicate and update all the other even page footers. Let me go ahead and close out of the header and footer sections. And the last thing that I want to cover, it's a bit more advanced, something that I'll cover in level 2 or 3, but because it works in tandem with the headers and footers, I want to briefly go over it now. And what I'm talking about is that, okay, I've got my first 3 pages here with headers and footers, and well, the last page, but that's the works cited. What if I want to go ahead and add additional pages, but I don't want to have copied over the headers and footers? Think of it like reading a book. Perhaps the first 20 pages up at the top on every other page has the header chapter 1, and then you go over to chapter 2, and then every other page has chapter 2. I mean, you wouldn't want to have copied over or duplicated chapter 1 into chapter 2 for the headers, right? Well, that's the same thing that I'm trying to solve here, is how to get through that issue. For example, I've got, let's say, the first 3 pages is one topic, and the next several pages that I'm adding an entirely different topic, but I want to keep it within the same document. Heck, maybe they're just chapters. The first 3 pages are chapter 1, the next several pages are chapter 2. So to not have those copied over the headers and footers, this is what I need to do. Come up here, click on the Page Layout tab, go to the Page Setup group, click on the Breaks drop-down arrow, and this is the new feature here, the section breaks. What I'm looking at here is the next page section break. What it does is it inserts a section break and starts the new section on the next page. In other words, you can see over here in the icon, the gray lines in the page above and the red lines in the page below. It's telling you that what you do in one doesn't affect the other, so it doesn't update and cause those lines to be red or the lines down below to be gray. In this example, any headers or footers that I change in one section, several pages down, doesn't affect the several pages above in the first section. So let me click off because I really need to find out where I'm going to insert this section break. Let's go ahead and do it before the works cited here. Click so my cursor's flashing there, come back up, click on the breaks, go to next page, click on it, and there you go. It adds it here, a section break that's going to be applied to the next page. So up above this is the first section, below this on the next page is the second section. How do you know? Well, first of all, you can look at the code there if you have your show hide codes turned on and say, okay, there's a break. But probably more definitively to see if we're in section 1 or 2 is to come down here on your status bar, right click, come up and check section. When you do that, let me click off. You can see I already have it checked. I'm in section 2. When I come up here and click above, I'm in section 1. Cool. So if I come down here and I add, some more pages, back to page layout, breaks to just simple pages, 1, 2. Let's scroll down and see if this actually works. Wait a second. I'm looking at the bottom in the second section because it says here I'm in the second section. I have a footer here. What's going on? Well, there's one more step that we have to do after we section off the top 3 or 4 pages from the bottom 3 or 4 pages that I'm going to be adding, or I think I've added. Let's see, I got a total of 7. The final thing that we need to do is to go back into the header and footer sections by just double-clicking in the footer here, and a feature comes to light. No, literally. Highlighted right there, link to previous. Well, if you don't like that, then just go ahead and say don't link to it, click on it, and then it's now disconnected. So what I do here, if I delete this, it won't affect all the page footers, the odd page footers in the first section, only the second section. So let me scroll up. Of course, that's the even page footer in the second section. Let me go ahead and delete that. We're scrolling up to the first section here. You can see it's no longer in the second section. There we go. The headers or footers, but in the first section, let's look at the headers or footers there. There we go. They're still there. Didn't affect it. So what I do up here in the first section doesn't affect the second section. So there's a couple ways you can tell what section you're in the document. Well, 3 ways. One is by looking at the headers or footers, section 1, scrolling to find those. The other way, let me go ahead and close out of the headers and footers, is to have your show hide codes on, of course, and then scroll up to find that code where it says next page section break. There we go. And then finally, of course, having this turned on where you go ahead and you click and it says section 1, scroll down and click in another section until you can find one and see if it says section 2. And that comes in handy if you don't have your codes turned on so you can't tell where you're clicking. I mean, if you're clicking after the next section break, that code that stretches across the entire page, or before it. In fact, you may have 3 or 4 or 5 of them. You won't know until you keep advancing through the document and clicking in other areas of the document. Or again, you turn on the show hide codes and you count up all those different section breaks. If Word sees issues within your document that has to do with spelling, grammar, or context, it'll underline them with squiggly marks and they'll be color coordinated. So if you see a red squiggly, it's for spelling, green is for grammar, and blue is for context. You can see up here, my title has a green squiggly, so Word considers that to be a grammatical error. So you can go ahead and right-click on it and get some information about it, and if it had any suggestions, it would give it to you right here. It doesn't really, it just says, well, we think it's a fragment, go ahead and consider revising. If not, and you want to get rid of that green squiggly, you can ignore it once, and what that does is that, well, for this session it's okay, but the next time you open it back up, the green squiggly will be back. Let's go ahead and continue on by scrolling down our document, see if we find any other issues. And there we go, a red squiggly. Again, that's for spelling issues. So let's see. Again, you have a better chance of getting a pure oil. So let's go ahead and right-click and see if we get any suggestions, and we do. Pure. Go ahead and left-click on that, fixes it. We can go and move to the next issue. And then we have lemon, and scrolling down, we have Melaleuca, vetiver. In any case, you can imagine if you had hundreds of pages of spelling, grammatical, or context issues, how difficult that could be if you have to scroll through each page. I'll show you a shortcut in just a minute, but the last thing I want to cover is a context error. For example, let me click below here, hit enter a couple of times, and then type in the sentence. Okay, what's wrong with this sentence? Well, it's the use of the word pear, because it's not spelled when it's within the context of this sentence, P-E-A-R. That's a fruit. It's got to be P-A-I-R. So you can see the blue squiggly underneath that word there. Let's go ahead and right-click on it. And there it is. Go ahead and left-click to change it, and we're good to go. So now we know, and we've seen, the 3 different color squigglies if Word finds a spelling, grammatical, or context issue throughout your document. Now the shortcut to this, let me go ahead and hit the Control Home key, is to come up here and click on the Review tab, go to the Proofing group, and click on Spelling and Grammar. And what it does is it'll go through and find those errors for you, so you don't have to like squint your eyes to spot a red squiggly, green one, or a blue one. It'll go right to it. Or, as you see when I hover over it, the shortcut key is F7. So if you're not on the Review tab, I'm on the Home tab, instead of moving my mouse way up here clicking on the Review, just leave it there, hit the F7 key on the keyboard, and it brings up the Spelling and Grammar Check window. Okay, takes me to the first issue, which is in red, a spelling issue, and it says, okay, what oil is this for laxative, antiseptic, and anti-cancer? Suggestion is, well, I think it's a lemon. Go ahead and select it, click Change. Changes it, moves to the next issue here, Melaleuca. It has no suggestions, and if it was spelled correctly, then what I could do is I can either ignore it, and you got 2 options. You can ignore it once, or if there's more Melaleuca throughout the document, let's say we have 25 of these within the document, you can ignore all of them, otherwise it'll ignore this once. Go to the next Melaleuca, then you have to hit ignore again, and just do ignore all in case if there's many Melaleucas throughout the document, or better yet, if it is spelled correctly, go ahead and click Add to Dictionary. When you do that, it no longer sees it as misspelled. There's vetiver. Let's go ahead and add it to the dictionary, and we're done. Click Okie dokie, and you can see when I scroll down to the bottom here, vetiver is no longer considered misspelled because, again, it was added to the dictionary. You want to watch my custom dictionary training videos, so if you made a mistake of adding something to the dictionary, or you want to add more things to the dictionary, I'll go ahead and show you where that's at in that training video. The readability statistics is basically a rating or measurement of the complexity of text or readability. So for example, in my journalism class, they say when you write a story, keep all the words within it at a 5th grade level, because they think, I guess, that the rest of the world doesn't read beyond a 5th grade level in any case. So if you want to find out what level you're at here, the grade, if you're using fancy words, then go ahead and turn the readability statistics on. Come up here, click on the File tab, go down to Options. Come up here, click on the Proofing tab, and then down below where it says the One Correct Spelling and Grammar in Word section, check the Show Readability Statistics. Click Okie dokie, and then to use the feature, it only comes after a spell check. Come up here, click on the Review tab. In the Proofing group, click on Spelling and Grammar, or just hit the shortcut key F7 on the keyboard. It opens up, and again, as you recall in the previous training video, I ignored this once, so it's coming back up again, saying, hey, this is a fragmented sentence, or we think it is. I have no suggestions. You can go ahead and ignore it once, or ignore the rule, or the other options, next sentence, or explain. I'm going to go ahead and say, you know what, let's ignore this once, go to the next issue. Again, lemon. Let's select lemon and click on Change. And then when it's done, you'll get a little pop-up that says, okay, we're done with the spelling and grammar check, and then the text mark with do not check spelling or grammar was skipped. Just go ahead and click OK. brings up the readability statistics, counts up all the words, characters, paragraphs, sentences, gives us the averages here of these sentences per paragraph, and then down below the readability. We have passive sentences, 0%, and then we have the Flesch reading scale here, the reading ease. But what I'm more interested in is the grade level. Ooh, mine's almost at a sophomore 10th grade level. I better dumb it down a bit, I guess, according to the journalism classes that I've taken. It needs to be at a 5th grade reading level. Click Okie dokie, and that'll come at the end of every spell check, unless of course I come back up here to the file, down to the options, to the proofing tab, and uncheck show readability statistics, and there we go. Now if you watch the spell check training video, you'll recall that when we came across some misspelled words that weren't misspelled, like these essential oils for Melaleuca and Vetiver, we just right-clicked on them and went down and added them to the dictionary. When we did that, Word no longer sees that as a misspelled word because it compares that word to what it has in the dictionary, and we just added it to the dictionary. You can right-click on that one and add it as well. Now if I made a mistake and want to update the dictionary or add more words to it, come up here, click on the File tab, go down to Options, come up and click on the Proofing tab, and there it is, Custom Dictionaries. Click on the button, and there's the default custom dictionary. Go ahead and click on Edit, and there are the two words, Melaleuca and Vetiver. When I go ahead and select them and delete them, and click OK, and then click OK and click OK, you'll get red squiggly underlines back because we removed them from the dictionary. Now, this custom default dictionary here didn't contain all the hundreds of thousands of words that could be misspelled. I mean, that's another part of Microsoft Word that we don't have access to when we edit the custom default dictionary here. This is for us. Now, if we want to go ahead and add additional dictionaries, let's go ahead and click on New, and let's type in, let's do friends. Click Save. So I've got my custom default dictionary and an additional one that includes all the names of my friends. Because let's say I got a bunch of friends who have weird names that are misspelled. So if I want to add them to the dictionary, I can't right-click on them within the document because when I do, it'll go to the default one unless of course I want to change the default for a session and click on Change Default. Now when I right-click my friends' names within the documents here, it'll go and add it to the friends dictionary. Of course, I want to be careful to not right-click on anything else that I don't want in my friends dictionary. So now that I changed the default, let me click Okie dokie, click Okie dokie. Remember, we changed it to the friends being the default. So if these were my friends, Melaleuca and Vetiver, hello, they're kooky names, but they're unique. Go ahead and right-click and say you want to add it to the dictionary. And then let's check it, File, to Options, Proofing, Custom Dictionaries. This is the default. Click Edit. There it is, Vetiver. Go ahead and select it, delete it, click OK. Change this back to the default. And then if I want to go ahead and add my friends to the dictionary without having it at the default and right-clicking all the misspelled friends words within the document, then select it, go ahead and click on Edit, and then just type in their names up above. Like my name is a name that Microsoft Word considers misspelled. I mean, come on, there's a Kirtland, Ohio. I guess if I just add the land after Kurt, it will be okay. And then click Add. So you can manually go ahead and type them and add them down below to the dictionary. Let me go ahead and click Cancel. If I'm done with this, I no longer have friends, go ahead and click Remove, click Okie dokie, click OK, and we're back to where we started before we added these misspelled words to our default dictionary. Now if you want to get a word count for your document because your teacher told you had to type in a 500-page word essay or something, you can do it one of a couple of ways. Either come up here and click on the Review tab, go to the Proofing group, click on Word Count, and there it is, number of pages, words, characters with no spaces with, paragraphs and lines. You can include text boxes, footnotes, and endnotes. We haven't covered these yet, but we'll cover those in a later training video. In any case, click Close. Probably the easiest way to do a word count is if you're not on the Review tab, just come down here, and there it is, Words. It's got the total here. Click on it, brings up the same window, and it's only available, let me click Close, down here if you right-click down the status bar and you have word count checked. If not, go ahead and check it and just come down here and click on it to get the rest of your document statistics. In my journalism class, when I used the same word over and over again, my professor would go, "Oh, that's pretty boring. Can't you use something else?" Like, for example, I'm talking about essential oils here that come from like shrubs, flowers, trees, what I like to call plant sweat. These sweats or liquid-like substances, I keep using sweat. He says, okay, can you find something else that Has the same meaning but a different word to describe these plant juices. Don't use sweat. Well, what you can do is you can look up what's called a synonym, an alternative choice for the word that you're using here, by right-clicking on it, going to synonyms, and let's see, we've got perspirations. That sounds kind of cool. Plant sweat. These perspirations, or liquid-like substances, help plants defend themselves from bugs, disease, and harsh environmental conditions. So you can see how your synonyms can either make your document sound a little bit more sophisticated, or you can dumb it down and say, these perspirations, right-click, go to synonyms, these fluids, and keep it simple, or exudates. Wow, okay. I guess I could really have a lot of people baffled by using these even hoitier words. Let me click off in a blank area. In any case, you get the idea. If I want to do research or look up the definition of a word here, like oils, let's say I don't know what that is, I can go ahead and right-click on the word, go down the shortcut menu to look up, and say I want to check out the dictionary. Go ahead and click on it. Brings up the task pane that says it's a thick, greasy liquid. Cool. Once you're over here, you can click on the drop-down arrow and you can choose other options instead of the dictionary. You can go ahead and look up oils in the Thesaurus. Well, that's hard to say. And then you can see the synonyms there, lubricants, emollients, fats. You can go ahead and click on it, and then it changes the search to fats. Of course, if you click on the corresponding drop-down arrow, you can insert that, and it changes my oils to blubbers. That's not really appetizing there. I can go ahead and click undo and get rid of that, back to oils. And then I can come back here and click back and go back to my original search, which is for oils. Click on the drop-down arrow, search sites if I have a favorite site, or if I want to come down here and click on the research options, you can go ahead and activate a service for searching that will display when you click on the corresponding drop-down arrow by checking one of these boxes, like I guess Korean, French, whatever you want to do there. Click on Add Services. If you have a website address that will work with Microsoft Word here, go ahead and list it there, click Add, and then check it, and it'll be in the drop-down arrow when it comes to searching for your keywords here. Let me close out. Then when you're done, you can close out of here. Of course, it's also available up here on the Review tab, Research as well. Click on it, brings it up for oils, or if we go ahead and select shrubs and close out, and then click on Research for shrubs, it brings up shrubs. Okay. Of course, we have to click on the Go button for shrubs, otherwise it leaves the search results for oils still, and then it updates to bushes. As you recall, in one of the earlier training videos, we learned the autocorrect feature, which automatically corrected misspelled words after we typed it, like when we typed in T-I-H-S for this. When we hit the spacebar, it looks back and it says, okay, this is a misspelled word, let's automatically correct it. And then when we want to change that, if we didn't like it changing on the fly for us, we could hover back over it. And then you can see that little blue rectangle, hover over that, brings up the Smart tag, click on its corresponding drop-down arrow, then you get these choices. Change it back to TIHS, or stop automatically doing this, or go to the autocorrect options. When you click on that, it pulls up the window, or click cancel. If you want to customize it, not wait for a mistake, then come up here, click on the File tab, go down to Options, come up here, click on Proofing, and come over here and click on Autocorrect Options. That way you can go ahead and customize your own autocorrects here. So for example, if I'm typing in a lot of letters and I just want to type in the, let's say it's my acronym BRG for best regards, so you can say replace BRG when I type it with best regards. Go ahead and click Add. Adds it down below. Let's take it for a test drive. Click okie dokie. Let's hit enter and type in BRG. When I hit the space bar, it'll look back and check it and then say, okay, this is what we're going to replace it with. Pretty cool, huh? And then of course, if you want to go ahead and get rid of that, File, back to Options, to Proofing and Autocorrect Options, go ahead and type in the first couple of letters and it pulls it up for best regards. Select it, click Delete, gets rid of it, click okie dokie, and so BRG space no longer does the autocorrect. Now, to be able to sort your bulleted list or numbered list items, it's really simple. And when it comes to sorting, what it does, generally speaking, is it takes the first letter within that list and you can sort that, the whole item, by that first letter, either ascending, which goes from all the A's up at the top, followed by the B's, C's, D's, down to the Z's, or you can flip that, do descending, which descends from the Z's all the way down to the A's. So to go ahead and do a simple sort, for example, like on this numbered list here, which by the way, In the numbered list, you could say, why would I want to sort that list if it's a hierarchical structure of 1 being the most important? And if I sort that ascending by the first letter, this would bump down here and the A's would be up at the top followed by the B's and C's, so it wouldn't be the highest priority, which in the numbered list, number 1, you'd think, okay, that's the high priority. Well, you could use a numbered list for another way, and that's just basically the total number of items that you need to bring. Let's say in this example, to camping, you don't have it in any particular order, you just realize that you need to bring a total of 5 items. So sorting it wouldn't hurt it, okay? You're just using it to count up how many items. To show you how to do it, just go ahead and be sure to select all the items within your list that you want to be able to sort, the entire list there, because if you don't and you just click anywhere within it and you come up here on the Home tab to the paragraph group and you click on the Sort button, the A to Z, notice 2 things happen. First of all, the window comes up asking us how we want to sort this, and then second of all, notice how it's selected not only the list that we want to sort, the numbered list, but also the other paragraphs and the bulleted list as well, which we do not want that. So click Cancel and focus it by selecting the numbered list, and then come back up here and click on the Sort button, okay? So we're focusing just on that numbered list. I'm going to go ahead and go from left to right here, so the first thing it asks us is what do we want to sort by? A paragraph, or click on the drop down arrow, or field 1. Now we know about paragraphs because at the end of each either bulleted list item or numbered list item is a paragraph code that takes us to the next one, because everything to the left of that paragraph code is within that item, right? We learned that in level 1. So paragraphs is very simplistic. It just means, okay, you can type and type and type as much as you want, but after you type a gazillion sentences, it always looks at the first letter within that entire paragraph. Or your paragraph could be actually broken up into fields, as we just saw here, but it only found 1 field. How does Word define what a field is? Well, if you come down here and you click on the Options button, you see where it says Separate Fields At? It actually looks within each paragraph and it looks for these what are called delimiters. It's a fancy way of saying special characters that will, in this case, separate your fields. So apparently, there's a tab within this numbered list here, a tab delimiter or character. If there was commas within it, I could go ahead and select commas. And you can see it up here. I've got a comma in the bulleted list, 1, but also 2. So I have it separating the first and last name and also the city and state. So if I select commas, and I have it selected up here, then there would be a total of how many fields? Well, you've got 1 field before the comma here. Then you have the second field between this comma and the next comma, so there's number 2, and then you have another field after that comma. So you see 2 commas, but you have 3 fields, okay? And I'll show you that in just a second. So in any case, you select tabs, you click OK, it shows you that you have 1 field. Let me click Cancel because I want to show you that code there. And if you remember how to turn on your codes in level 1, come up here on the Home tab to the paragraph group, click on the Show Hide Codes, and there you go. The tab code is the arrow. So that means that when you create your list items, it automatically adds a tab there, and you can go ahead and start typing it. So it says, okay, everything after that tab code until it hits the next tab code is going to be 1 field. And because there's no other tab codes there, at the end of this paragraph, it just says, okay, between that first tab code and the end of the paragraph, I don't see another one, so that's just 1 field. So it doesn't matter whether you select the paragraph to sort by, which is the entire paragraph here, looks at the first letter, or just the first field. And remember, after this tab code, there's just 1 field because there's not another tab code. So again, you're still looking at the entire item here, sorting it by the first letter. So let's go back up here, click on A to Z, our sort button. So it doesn't matter, paragraphs or the first field. We'll leave it at paragraphs. And then what do you want to sort by? Do you want to sort by text? It can also do it by numbers or dates. So if you have numbers or dates within here, you can do it that way as well. We'll leave it as text. You can sort it, like I said, ascending, which means all those items that begin with the letter A will be up at the top, followed by the B's, C's, D's, down to the Z's. Or you can do it descending. Let's do it ascending. Click Okie dokie, and hey, there we go. Since we didn't have any A's, what's next in the alphabet within my numbered list here is the G. So G, M, P, P, and S is at the bottom of the alphabet for all the items that I have here looking at the first letter. So it's sorted ascendingly. Okay, let's come up here and let's do something a little bit more detailed. So we've got a bulleted list here, and we've got a couple of delimiters in here. Actually, I've got quite a few delimiters in here. I've got tabs, I've got commas, I've got spaces, and I have paragraphs. So I can choose any one of those that I want to go ahead and say, this is going to be a field that I sort by, this is a field that I sort by, or that's a field that I sort by. Because by default, if you just choose paragraph, it takes the first letter within that paragraph, the entire paragraph here, and it sorts it by that. But if I want to break it up into fields, let me come up here, click on my sort button, and click on the drop down arrow. It's got 2 fields. Again, How does it know how many fields are in there? Well, when you click on options, it says it's looking for the delimiter tabs. How many tabs do we have? We have 1, 2. So at the right of the first tab, we have the first field. Right at the second tab, we have the second field, so there's 2 fields. If I come down here and I change it to commas, how many commas do I have? I've got 1, I've got 2. So to the left of this comma, I have the first field. To the right of that comma, before it hits the next comma, I've got 1 field, even though it's separated by whatever. It's just looking in between commas, okay? So we've got 1 to the left, 1 field in between until we hit the next comma, and then 1 to the right of that comma. So 2 commas, 3 fields. So click OK, click on the drop-down arrow, 3 fields. So what I could do is I can go ahead and say let's sort by field number 2. So remember, this is the first field to the left of the comma. The second field includes Lisa, tab, Chicago before it hits the next comma. So it's going to take that first letter in this second field and sort it. What do we want to sort it by? If we do it ascending, it'll take Andrew because he begins with the letter A up at the top followed by the B's, C's, or we can do it descending, which it flips. So it'll start with Simon and go up to the top, click Okie dokie, and there we go. Simon, Lisa, John, and then the A's down at the bottom. And like I said, let me come up here and click on the sort button again. You can come back down here to options and actually type in a special character. Like let's say you type in the last name, you put a dash in there, or you want to even use a space. Just go ahead and type in whatever other special character or delimiter that is breaking up your paragraph here within the items there for each bullet. I'm going to go ahead and click cancel. And then down at the bottom it says my list has no header row or it has a header row. A header row basically is the label for the rest of the rows down below, where I could actually have another bullet up at the top saying these are the first names and the cities. I wouldn't want that bullet sorted with the rest of the bullets, so I could say that first row, it's the heading or the title for the rest of the bullets down below, so don't include that is what it's saying. And you can see it right up at the top. It actually has the sort by below this header row, which assumes that this is now the first header row. So you can choose this header, which is San Diego, California, or click on the drop-down arrow, choose the last name header here. Okay, so it doesn't matter if I choose the last name, we're looking at this field right here, but again, what options are we looking at? We're looking at tabs. It defaults back to tabs. So let me go ahead and click cancel. And then let's see what happens when I go ahead and sort ascending. Because then that means when I sort it here, it's looking at the first letter, because remember, we've got 2 tabs, so there's the first field, there's the second field. It's sorting by this field first. Click Okie dokie. It doesn't sort the first header row, because if we didn't designate this as a header row, Wilford would be put down here below Simpson because it's ascending. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. You get the alphabet song. That's how it's sorted. You can come back up here, click on the sort button, and it's nice because after you're done, it just defaults back to where it says no header row, and the options are back defaulted. It'll take it back to its defaults, and then you just have to reset it again if you want to sort it in a different way. I have a list of items here that I want to convert into an outline format. First of all, what's an outline? Well, an outline is creating a list with a hierarchical structure to it that has numbered main points and subpoints. As you recall in the level 1 training videos, when you have a list of items you want to convert into a numbered list, and we covered this a little bit, we selected it, came up here on the Home tab to the paragraph group, and there it is. Click on the numbering feature. When you click on it, it numbers them, but that's not an outline format. Even though it has the numbers, it doesn't have it in a hierarchical structure as the multi-level list does. And we went over it briefly in the level 1 training videos. Here I want to go over it again, but a little bit more in depth, and also show you how to customize it and how to save that customization so it's available in all new documents. Otherwise, if you don't make it available, it'll just stay in the current document that you customize that multi-level list to. And also, thinking about the outline is that if you're looking for the keyword, I need to create an outline. You're not going to see that in my level 1 training videos. I actually name it after the feature here, the multi-level list. When I move off of it, hover back over it, multi-level list, right? Well, here I want to be able to make sure I catch all those who slip through the cracks and are looking for a way to create an outline, and hopefully I got you. So here we go. Let's go ahead and click on the drop-down arrow to the list library, and you can choose from any one of those, but this is my favorite one here. And you can see that when it comes to an outline format in this multi-level list feature is that up at the top you have the main point, which is not, well, all of them are numbered, and that's the feature of an outline format, but also in a hierarchical structure. So you have different numbering system for main points and subpoints and sub-subpoints and so on, but also you have it indented for each subpoint as you're going down the outline there. So if you go ahead and click on it, Microsoft can't tell which one of the items within your list here is a main point. I know I put mine in bold and you don't have to do that, but I wanted this to pop out at you so you can see that my main points are my favorite places, supporting by the subpoints, because these are my favorite places, Zion's National Park or the Hilton Hotel, and then Potter's responsibilities are to go food shopping and then to also assign a camp cleanup team. In any case, let's go ahead. Once we have all our main points, we're like, wait a second, these two are subpoints to this main point and those two are subpoints to this main point. Go ahead and click and drag to select it, and then hold down the control key so you can click and drag and select other text within your document. So now that I have all my subpoints selected, to go ahead and make those subpoints the main points or to indent them and have them numbered differently, you can do it one of many ways. As you recall, when you select something and you move over to the right, well, down here, here we go, you get the miniature formatting toolbar. You get the option to increase the indent or decrease it. Now if I increase it, it does two things. Well, it increases the indent, moves it over, but also puts it in that next numbering system. So I can tell the difference between the main point one of two ways. Either by looking at the numbering, going, okay, this is number 1 and that's lowercase a, not as important as, well, number 1. But more importantly, I think, is that it's indented. So I'm going from main point down here to something that's indented to a subpoint, back to a main point, that's all the way out to the left-hand margin there. And then back down into an indent for its subpoints. Let me go ahead and click undo here. The other ways you can do this is that if you can't bring up that mini formatting toolbar by hovering over here and trying to bring it back up, you can go ahead and right-click on the selection. Of course, you get your shortcut menu, but you also get your miniature formatting toolbar here. Go ahead and click on Increase Indent, or again, you got Decrease, so if you made a mistake, go ahead and decrease it, move it back out, or come up here on the Home tab to the paragraph group, and you can click on, there's your Increase and Decrease Indent there, or once you have them selected, you can hit the Tab key on the keyboard, and that also increases the indent, which is a lot faster than me moving my mouse around here. And by the same token, you can use the shortcut keys Shift-Tab to move it back out or to decrease the indent. So think of it this way, when you increase the indent, you're demoting them. They're not as important as the main points. So you want to demote something, increase the indent. Okay, if we've got other items that we want to add to this, for example, like the camp cleanup team, we now have the names of those who are going to be part of it. Go ahead and hit Enter. I know it's on the same level, but let's not worry about that right now. Let's just go ahead and add the names like John, hit Enter, Susie. And then what we can do is we can either, well, one of two things. We can either go ahead and select these two, hit the Tab key to increase the indent so we have a subpoint to a main point, or you can go ahead and click in here and do Shift-Tab to decrease the indent and say, okay, that's the main point. So we have 3 main points. My favorite places, Potter's responsibilities, camp cleanup team, whoever that is. Well, it's John and Susie. Now, you've got a main point and a subpoint. It should just be a subpoint, so we want to go ahead and select these and, come over here to the miniature formatting toolbar and decrease the indent, or use the Shift-Tab key to back it back out, and there we go. And like I said, you don't have to make them in bold. I did because I wanted to be able to have that pop out at you. So I can go ahead and select this one, hold down the Control key and select that one. Move over the miniature formatting toolbar, click on B to deselect it, and now they're not bold, and it looks all uniform now. Now you can customize this. You don't have to use the default list here where it has 1, 2, 3, the numbering system for the main points, followed by the lowercase letters for the subpoints. You can use characters, symbols, pictures. All you have to do is go ahead and, with the cursor flashing anywhere within the multi-level list or outline format here, come back up here in the paragraph group. And I know it's highlighted here for the numbering system, but we're still dealing with the multi-level list. Click on the drop-down arrow, and you can see it's highlighted there, the one that I'm currently using. And you'll notice that when I come down here, you can see over here that it's shaded, so it automatically selects all the items within the list. So I don't have to go ahead and select the entire list. Just as long as I have my cursor flashing somewhere within the list, I'm good to go. So I can come down here and say that I want to define a new multi-level list. Click on it, and it brings up a window that says, okay, you've got your levels here, 1 through 9. As you recall, the first level is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can see it's right there. It makes it in bold so you can tell that you're on the first level. Do you want to use that numbering system, that numbering style? You can see right here, number style for this level, or you can go ahead and change it and use any one of those. Or you can go down to the next level and you can see it's lowercase a, b, c, d. You can see the number style for that list. So I can click on the drop down arrow, choose from that, or choose a picture. If I go ahead and I select a picture, it doesn't look good. Click on the drop down arrow. How about if we do a new picture? Go ahead and browse for any one of these pictures here, or go ahead and click on import and browse through your computer, find a picture, and then go ahead and double click on it and it will import it into here. You can click OK and then it will be the new picture there. Or click on the drop down arrow and say you want a new bullet, in which case, well, the congruence symbol, that works. You can pick from any one of these symbols here, click okie dokie, and well, there we go. Now my second level, if I click OK, instead of having lowercase a, b, c, d, we'll now have the congruence symbol. Don't forget you have these other options here. You can enter a formatting for the number. You can click on the font and choose whether you want it in bold, a different size. I mean, you can go crazy on this. And then the indent, right now it's got the default indent. You can make it more indent. You can have it aligned at a different point. It's 0.25. Maybe you can have it aligned further out or further in. And then you can set it for all the levels. You also get the more option. I mean, you can really go ahead and say just apply the changes to the whole list or just this point forward or the current paragraph. But to keep it simple here, I mean, this is extra stuff here that hopefully isn't too difficult to figure out here. But let me go ahead and click less because less is more when we get a grasp of a new idea here. In any case, I like the way it is. Let me go ahead and click OK. And hey, the congruent symbols, isn't that fancy? So this only applies to this current document. So if I go ahead and open up a new document, it's not going to be there. But if I want to add this to all new documents because I really like this format, come back up here in the paragraph group on the Home tab, click on the drop down arrow. And you see the current list right there. It's got the congruent symbol and the list in the current document. It's only available in the current document, but if I come down here and right click on it and say Save in List Library, it's going to save it in here. And this is my list library. It's not currently in there, is it? If I go ahead and save it, then come back up here, click on it again, there it is in the list library. So let me click off in a blank area. If I come up here, click on the File tab, go down to New, and double click on Blank Document. So I'm in a new document, and I'm like, I really like that multi-level list that I customized. Well, because I saved it in the list library, I just have to come up here on the Home tab in the paragraph group, click on the multi-level list drop-down arrow, and there it is. Oh, that's so fun. You can see, well, let me move up, that little congruent symbol right there, okay? So it's available there until, let me close out of the new document. I come into any of the documents here, click on the drop-down arrow, and I right-click and I say Remove from the list library, so it's no longer available in any new documents, just in the current document. Thanks for watching. Hey, as a quick reminder, if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click on me and subscribe to my channel to get notified of the latest videos. And for great specials on my products, please see the description below this video.